This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy, and today we're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna review a small claims, regular small claims, not a small claims assessment review, but small claims as in when somebody doesn't like to pay their bills. And so I'm going to review the entire process so that you can get an overview. So I'm going to take a real live case and review the entire case and all the requirements for filing, securing a judgment, and what it is that you need to do to collect your money. Okay. Now, first of all, this is the petition, and this is in the city of Syracuse. Different municipalities may have different forms. Obviously, different states, it's going to be different. But this is a New York State matter. Everything I deal in is New York State oriented, both in assessment matters and small claims. So this is a small claims petition. I believe the limit in the city of Syracuse is $5,000. Some of these other towns are like 3,000 or 3,500 if you're in a smaller municipality, and there's jurisdictional requirements. But anyway, if you're in this particular guy had a building in the city of Syracuse, and I represented him, secured him a reduction, and then he decided he didn't want to pay. And what he did was he was able to secure on top of the 155,000 that was able to reduce from his assessment and his commercial building. He also secured an exemption, and I had nothing to do with the exemption. There was no reference to it in my contract. I never spoke to the Board of Assessment Review regarding exemptions. I don't get involved in exemptions because they vary from municipality to municipality, and it's impossible for me to keep track of them. I deal in fair market value and small claims assessment review and Board of Assessment Review matters as it's state law, and it applies uniformly across the state. So I just don't get involved in exemptions. But when it came time to pay his bill, he thought that the $50,000 exemption that he secured should be deducted from my fee. Now, had I charged him for that $50,000 reduction, I think it would make sense for him to, want to have that removed. But he wants it removed on top of, from the what I secured for him, and I had nothing to do with it. So anyway, he just doesn't like to pay. I think that's he claims he's worth $30 million, and which is kind of weird because he doesn't even have $2,350 in his checkbook apparently, because his check was no good after I secured the judgment initially. So just hard to imagine somebody worth $30 million can't write a check for $2,350. It's kind of bizarre. But this is the petition, and it costs $20 to file, so it's no big deal. You can get the form online, and you just fill it out, and you can mail it to the clerk with a check for $20. I think you need to send them a money order. I can't remember. I don't think that they want a personal check, but you just read the form, you fill it out. It's no big deal. And actually the court will serve the other party, so you don't have to deal with service or anything. It's great. $20. Is it 20 or is it 30? It's 20. I mean, really, it's a great service for $20, except that it took a year and a half to do is the only problem. So I filed it, tried to get him to pay. He didn't want to pay. So I filed it, and it took a long time to get a judge assigned to it, and then to finally have it scheduled. And then, we had the hearing, and the judge was great. He was super qualified. He had so much experience. It was just overkill. It just seemed like an incredible waste of his time for this petty nonsense. But he was patient. He listened carefully. He even listened to the my idiot opposing party. He listened patiently to his nonsense. It's just, I got to give him credit. And I said that before I won the case. I told people that win, lose, or draw. I think the judge did a fantastic job. His judicial demeanor was great, and it was clear that he was listening intently to what it is that both parties had to say, and it was clear that he understood what we had to say, and and I, I could tell at certain points, uh, like uh, at one point, before I sued this guy, he sent me a check for half the money, and he writes paid in full, on the back. And so if you cash that check, that means you're not going to get the rest of your money. And that's a trick that deadbeats pull. So watch out for that trick. And they do it to people that they think are need the money, and so they'll just give up on the lawsuit and just take that money. It's a trick that deadbeats do. I mean, he's been probably doing it his entire life. If he is $30 million, if he is worth $30 million, it's by screwing people over. Probably would be my guess. So to me, that behavior demonstrates that this is not an isolated incident, and it was clear to me that the judge picked up on that, and because the judge had seen that game played before, and so anyway, it was a very thorough hearing. I can't remember how long it was, but it was probably at least an hour, and we each of us had every opportunity to say what it is we had to say, and the only issue I had with the judge is it took 3 months to get a decision. It's supposed to be done in 30 days. Apparently, his law clerk was out or something. I don't know, but it just dragged it on, and it's not an issue with him. It's just the system. I was awarded judicial interest of 9%, which is standard, but I believe that judicial interest should start the day that the amount was due, not the date of the judgment or the date of 30 days after the judgment. It should be 9% from the day it was due. And because it encourages people to do this, because they get to use your money for a year and a half. It's just kind of, in other words, it's encouraging bad behavior. And because, a lot of people will give up, and they don't want to spend a year and a half thinking about this nonsense. In this case, I certainly, if I spent the amount of time that I did on this case, just doing my regular business, I would have been ahead of the game. But the thing is that I love this stuff. So I love to hold disingenuous and crooked people accountable. It's kind of my thing. And so I kept after this guy, and then we get the decision. And that's enough of that petition. You can look it up online. Let me show you the next one. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so here's the decision. Enclosed, please find a copy of the decision in order. So this is the order by the judge. Let's see, the hearing was the 29th of May, and we got the decision was written August 8th. I don't know what, August 28th. I don't know what date I received it. So May. So June 29th, July 29th, August 29th. Yeah, it's 3 months. So here's the decision. I should read all of this, but he says, upon conclusion of the proceeding, defendant Kunnumpurath acknowledged that he could be wrong as to factoring the exemption into his calculation for purposes of determining the amount owed. And if no truer words have ever been said, and if the plaintiff's calculations were accurate, plaintiff would be owed the amount requested. The court agrees. Yeah, boy. And a year and a half, for that. But they give you this document on how to collect your money. So here's the mistake that I made. And I knew better too. I knew better that when you're dealing with somebody with an LLC, or any kind of corporation, you need to have them sign personally and as an officer of the corporation. And I only had him sign as an officer of the corporation, so I couldn't sue him personally. But as it turns out, it's he and his wife are the partners in the LLC. And so I don't think his wife knew the shenanigans that this guy was up to. But anyway, so what you do with an LLC is that the building was in the LLC. So my option was to lien his building because I couldn't go after his personal assets. I couldn't go after his income. I couldn't go after his wife's income. All those kinds of things. I couldn't go after his personal checking account, but I could go after the LLC's checking account, and I can lien the building. And so that's what I was going to do. But anyway, I got the judgment, and then the guy sends me a bad check. It's hilarious. He's worth $30 million, but he can't write a good check. And so, the judgment gives him 30 days to pay. So it got past 30 days. It was on the 16th. It was due on the 11th. On the 16th, it was time for me to take action and start to lien the building. But I thought I'd try calling the guy's wife. And she's a doctor, so I called her at the clinic and left a message. I said, "This is I'd like to leave a message for Dr. Kunnumpurath. My name is Michael Franklin, and my number is such and such. And the judgment is past due, and I'll be filing a lien tomorrow. I need to hear from you immediately, and I will subsequently be setting her commercial building up for auction." And apparently that got his attention because his wife probably knew nothing about this stuff. And so it gets around the office that she's not paying her judgments. But coincidentally, that day, like an hour later, his check shows up in the mail. And so, I'd already had a bad check from him. So, we exchanged pleasantries. He called me some names that would curl your hair. And apparently he didn't like me leaving. After I found out that I got the check in the mail, I sent him an email. I said, I got your check. If it clears, please have your wife disregard my message. And apparently that set him off, and he's calling me all kinds of names, and it was hilarious. It was a hilarious exchange. But and he had indicated that the whole purpose of this is to waste my time, and that's what it was all about. I don't think that would fare him too well in court moving forward, because that's an intentional tort, is what that's called. And he's told me he was going to appeal, and that I'd never get my money. And I let him know that I could care less about the money. It really doesn't make any difference to me. All I'd use the money for is for other filing fees for other deadbeats like him. But anyway, so I was going to go down to the courthouse and get the what's the name of it? It's transcript of judgment. So I was going to get the transcript of judgment from the court clerk, from the small claims court clerk. And then I was going to take it over to the county clerk and file it. It cost $10. I told this guy, where can you get more joy out of $10 than this? So I was going to lien his property, which would have caused him considerable inconvenience. But I looked at the envelope that he'd sent his check in, and it was post-stamped a day before it was due. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to stoop to this guy's level. I would be fully justified in filing the lien because I didn't receive payment until 5 days after it was due. But it was post-dated the day before. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to stoop to this guy's level. I'm going to deposit the check, and if it clears, we'll move on. If it doesn't clear, I'm going to proceed with the lien. I'm going to get a information subpoena on his LLC where all the assets are, and I'm going to pursue auctioning the building to secure the judgment. And that's how the process works. It's arduous and time consuming, but my recommendation to you is look at it as a learning experience that can benefit you moving forward. So don't just look at it as you have to do this to get that payment. Look at it as a legal education that you can use for other things, and to educate other people who are getting screwed over, by a guy like this. And by the name, his name is Frank Kunnumpurath. How do you spell that? Let's get them. Yeah, Francis Kunnumpurath, Hilltop CNY LLC. Frank is a real operator. I tell you what. I imagine how he would have behaved had I lost this case and didn't secure the reduction. What are you going to do? But in 13 years of helping people with their assessments, this is the first guy who's ever not paid me, played these games with me, the first one ever. But now Frank knows how it works when you play these games with me. It can be rough on your reputation, is the thing. So Frank, my recommendation to you is moving forward, you should try to behave in an upright and honor the agreements that you enter into. That's what I do. And if you're worth $30 million and you have to screw people to get your money, well, I don't think that's particularly honorable, Frank. Get a job, and quit leeching off your wife, But anyway, nothing worse than a dude who leeches off women. Nothing worse. But anyway, that's how small claims works in the city of Syracuse. For $20, it's an unbelievable service. And like I said, Judge Thomas presided over it, and the guy's got years of experience. He's been involved in all kinds of cases, and it's just amazing to me that they've got him spending his time on this. It's just Frank's nonsense costs the taxpayers money for no reason. It's ridiculous. And so this case cost the taxpayers more than $2,350. And the last thing I want to do is cost the taxpayers money. But you just can't allow people to do this. You need to stand up to deadbeats because when they get away with it, they'll just be bigger deadbeats. So you gotta stop them. And so hopefully Frank will reflect upon his behavior, and maybe his wife will think twice before she enters into partnerships with him. Because her reputation is at stake. I'm certain she had no idea about any of this. She wouldn't even think about this petty nonsense getting involved in this. But Frank kind of, he had the arrogance to think that he could compete with me in a scenario such as this. It's my area of expertise, and he thinks he can defeat me in small claims. He's lost his marbles. But the whole decision is worth reading. When I first read it, it's like, oh my God, where's this thing going? And it's a pretty lengthy determination, but in the end, it's like it's a plain language contract, and the contract is what the contract says. Frank admitted that he entered into that agreement. That's the end of the story. This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy.